Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And today we've got another pretty interesting combination to test out, and it's one that could give us some decent results or could be absolutely terrible as well. This brand, and more specifically these type of shells from them, have been very hit or miss, so we'll see what happens. These are a little bit older version of these shells, and I've heard they are a little bit better, but we'll see. But as for the shell we've got out here today, it's another one that BG sent us a while back, so big thank you to him for sending some of these in. But I brought out some of the Federal 3rd degree shells. I don't have the box for it, but this one is a 12 gauge 3.5 inch 2 ounce payload of number 5, 6, and 7 shot. And from what I understand, the 5s and 6s are both lead and the 7s are the TSS shot or some variant of heavyweight shot. And like I just mentioned, I've heard that the older versions, which this shell is, might be a little bit better than the newer stuff. I don't know. Across the board, Federal shells have been very hit or miss. We've seen some decent results from these 3.5 inch older 3rd degree shells, so we'll see what happens with this one today. But as for the setup we've got to run them through, I brought out the Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag here with this choke, which is the Indian Creek 675 constriction, which has done very well with other stacked loads like this before. So we'll see what it can do with these today. Now, I'm definitely curious to see how the porting, and if you've ever seen the inside of one of these Indian Creek chokes, the notches or little levels that these have on the inside, I'm definitely curious to see how they play with this flight control wad in these shells. It might work out for us. It might ruin the pattern. I don't really know. We're just going to have to see. But as for the test today, everything is the same as usual. The turkey target is at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity out of those shells. I can't remember what they're supposed to be going, but I'll put the number on the screen when we get up here to look at the chronograph here in a few minutes, and we can see how close they actually got to the claim. Either way, let's get you guys to view the target. We'll take the shot, look at the chrono, and then go look at our results. I guess it could kind of go either way with this combination today, but let's go over here and take the shot and just see what kind of results it actually does give us. Okay, so that shell gave us 1302 through the chronograph. Again, I'm not entirely sure what the box claims. I think they might be 1250 or so, but I'll put it up on the screen here so that way you guys can see how close it is to their actual claim. Either way, 1300 isn't really surprising for these shells. From what I can remember, Federal shells like to be high 1200s or so, at least from my testing. So I don't think there's anything too surprising up here as far as velocity goes, but how well did it actually pattern down at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. All right, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And it's kind of a little bit all over the place, to be honest with you. Is it good enough to get you a bird? Yeah, clearly it probably is. I mean, there's what, 4 through the brain there and a couple more down the spine, so you would have absolutely gotten that turkey. However, looking at the pattern here, it tells a little bit different of a story. The overall pattern, I think, is pretty centered up on the paper, right where it should be. But if you're noticing what I'm noticing, we kind of have a little bit absent of a core. There's kind of sort of a hot zone right over behind his head here with a good amount of pellets in it, but our core should be centered up, and there's really not as much shot right around his face area there as what I kind of think there should be as compared to the rest of the pattern. And as for the rest of the pattern here, it's really just kind of all over the place. It's very open and very sporadic, and we even have a couple flyers all the way down at the bottom corners of the paper down there, and around the edges it pretty much covers the rest of the entire paper here, which is 36 inches wide by probably about 40 inches tall or so. So I don't know. It's definitely not the worst Federal pattern we've ever gotten. There's no doubt about that. We've seen way worse, but it's far from the best as well. And we have seen better out of these 3.5 inch 3rd degree shells as well. Although you have plenty enough shot down here to clearly take a turkey. I mean, there's nowhere in most of that paper that he'd be able to walk to and get away from you. It's just not what I would call impressive for a turkey pattern. I don't know, would I use it if it's what I had? Sure, but I'm definitely not going to seek it out. We'll say that. For a Federal shell, this is pretty unsurprising, really, in my book. So I don't know. This one is borderline. It's not great. It's not terrible. It would get you the turkey, but it's definitely not impressive. It's not a shell or a combination that I think I would seek out. I would just rather hunt with a longbeard load, but I don't know. Maybe that's exactly what you're looking for. Either way, I guess it's kind of middle of the road, and we'll leave it at that, really. Okay, here's the wad out of that shell, and it's these big, long, kind of goofy proportioned federal flight control wads here. Now, immediately, nothing too strange or out of the ordinary. As you can see, we do have the streaking down the side from the porting in that choke, but the little ribs or vents here on the side didn't catch on anything. But the one interesting thing I do see here is this big flat spot. And in person here, it doesn't really look like a smear mark, like it collided with something. It just kind of looks like it was there from the manufacturer or something. It's definitely a big noticeable flat spot. You can see how smooth that is as compared to the rest of the wad. Definitely something going on there. Either way, I mean, there's nothing stuck down in there, and it doesn't really look too surprising considering we went through an Indian Creek choke. That's pretty much about what I would expect to see, but I definitely think that big flat spot is pretty interesting there. And maybe that could have had a little bit of an input on our pattern. It's a possibility, but I just think these shells are kind of borderline in the first place, and I don't think the wad really played too much into our pattern today. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that pattern right there? I guess I'd probably call it somewhere middle of the road. It's not horrible necessarily. It's nothing amazing, that's for sure. It's pretty average for a federal shell. Clearly, you have plenty enough shot there to get you a turkey at 40 yards all day long. And sometimes that's just all you need, or that might just be what you're looking for. But at the same time, you can get a longbeard shell for cheaper than these third degree shells and have a much better performing option. So I really don't know. I could take it or leave it. I wouldn't be scared to hunt with it necessarily. I could be confident enough in it at 40 yards, but I wouldn't seek it out. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested these older version versus the newer version 3.5-inch third degree shells? And what kind of results have you seen out of them? And maybe would you hunt with a pattern like that? Let me know all that down in the comments. But I guess for today's test, it's nothing too surprising. I was hoping for a little bit better, but ultimately that is kind of what I expected to see. But with that being said, I've got more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.